Okay, this video is going to be a little bit of a preview for the new X420. Um, this is actually after I flew it the first time, so it had a crash, which I was able to repair fortunately. The canopy is removable, which it isn't on the X520. Well, you can remove it on the X520, but it isn't made out of the factory to be taken on and put back off. It's a little tricky to do when you're trying to record and hold the camera, but so there's that. And when you flip it over, you got your brushed motors, which have quite a bit of kick for brushed motors. Then it has this little, kind of reminds me of a World War II belly turret here for the for mounting a camera. For me, it really isn't much use because I never belly mount cameras. Then below it, you've got the battery bay, and down behind it is the flight controller. And those motor wires actually are the exact measurement for CG on this airplane. CG is a little kind of tricky for it because it's vertical takeoff and landing. But yeah, that's where it is, and then the motors have heat sinks on them too. That's basically it as far as the differences. I'm going to use the canopy opening here to mount my FPV camera, and I have some FPV footage that I'm going to be showing here in a minute. But I want to go over what you get in the box. You get a USB charging cable for the tube cell battery. You get 2 extra props, a wheel, and screws to mount your prop guards, which I'm not going to use. But there's people who wanted them for the X520, so kind of nice of them to include them for this package. And here's a size comparison between the X520 and X420. Now, the 520 I've got is actually a rebrand from a brand called Propel, but the price and shipping on Amazon is really good, and I just decided to go for it. I really like the black look, but you can tell how much bigger it is compared to the X420. The X420 is really compact, and it's a little bit of a handful, which I'm going to get to right now in my FPV video. So this is my first FPV flight. I picked an area where I didn't have to run into any trees or light poles. And what's really unique about this airplane is it doesn't use a rudder, like a physical rudder like you get on a lot of aircraft. It's using the motors to basically, it'll power down one motor, power down the motor on the other side, and then power up one on the inside to take turns. And you get a really unique flying experience for me, because I usually don't use rudder. And what I found was it kind of reminds me of like flying a hybrid of a quadcopter and winged aircraft, even when you're in horizontal winged mode like I am here. It's like you kind of drift around in corners, and it feels really unique. And it's actually like, if there's something to find different about an airplane and how it handles, it's definitely in its turns, because you can take these really different feeling turns for a winged aircraft. Like for me, I'm used to just bank and yank. I put a little, roll it over a little bit, pull back on the stick, and that's how I prefer to turn. But for this aircraft, it's really about turning using your rudder. And I took it out of stabilized mode and put it in 3D mode here, and it's different. Rolls are good, but when it comes to diving and making like your typical bank and yank turn, it was a little bit tricky to feel exactly like I wanted to. Like, my preferred flying style is in flying in close proximity, and I was feeling like there were some gaps I could have shot, and I chose not to, just because Now here I made a mistake. I meant to go back into 6G mode, and instead I put it in vertical mode. And I just got all out of sorts, and instead of keeping it at 50% and just hitting flight mode again to put it back into horizontal, I powered it down too much and just wound up crashing it. So this is flight number 2 from FPV, and I made up my mind I wanted to fly or take off horizontally like a normal airplane, and it probably needed about 10 yards to take off. Here again, I'm using rudder for turning, and it's just really different. It's really cool, but you just have to get in a frame of mind of, okay, I'm going to use rudder to turn. I'm going to drift into my turns. And it actually does make for a really fun way of flying. It's just a little bit of a handful to kind of get your mind around these different flight modes and how you have to fly when you're in horizontal mode. It just feels very different because all of my remote control winged aircraft have only had one motor in them, and you just get more when you use one motor. You just have that kind of, I don't know, traditional way of flying, versus here when you got two motors and you've got the variable power output coming from them to make your turns, and it's a little bit of an adjustment. Now, one issue I did have was you can't tell, but for the entire flight I was pulling back on pitch to keep the nose up. It kept wanting to nose down, like it felt like a gyro issue where it was trying to, like its idea was level was actually off, and it was trying to nose down to compensate to level it off when it didn't need to. So that's kind of a complicated deal, and I'm not sure what to do to fix it, but it does make flying a little bit of a handful when you're constantly trying to nose up. I actually hit a branch just then. My left wing, I heard it hit the branch and it kept on flying, which is great. So now my VTX channel frequency, I don't know if I had it lined up right, because I was getting a lot more interference than I usually do right here. And it was a bright day, no clouds at all, and man, the sun was just blazing down and not helping. But overall, it feels quick. It, for a little airplane, it really moves. And like here, where I just rolled, it dove a little bit on me, and not due to any of my input at all. It just did it. I didn't put any rudder into my roll. I generally don't. I usually just use pitch only for rolls, but maybe I could get a tighter roll if I put a little rudder on it. But right here, it got kind of wonky, and I was flying obviously in 3D mode, and it felt like it was taking, like my input was a little bit delayed, and it was taking too much input, and it was just kind of pointing in all kinds of crazy directions. Now I was able to recover, obviously I didn't crash, but it kind of made me feel like maybe proximity flying isn't the right way to go here. I kind of feel like non 6G mode, 3D mode like I'm in right now, you can do it and it'll work, but it is going to take a little bit of just getting to know your airplane and understanding how it'll react to your input. And I just felt like overall it kind of felt like this plane is really most comfortable actually flying in stabilized and doing a lot of rudder turning, and it's actually very fun. I mean, as far as just using rudder, and it's like you're drifting around turns and almost like rotating, like you can do these rotating turns, really tight rotating turns, versus your normal one-engined type of aircraft. Now, I put my flight time up here because I know that's really a big issue for a lot of people. XK put down, it had a 10 to 12 minute flight time, and really I would not fly it over 5 minutes, really, because I'm about, I put it in vertical mode here, successfully put it in vertical mode, and I got it repositioned to where I wanted to, and put it back into horizontal mode, and it all worked. It was beautiful. Didn't crash. It was a great feeling. So yeah, just the controls are just, they're taking me a little while to get acclimated and not crash it, because I just basically got overwhelmed. But you can tell the battery's running low here. And I just want to point out my reason for telling you to not fly it over 5 minutes and to definitely have a timer is I'm about to crash here. I did a roll and it dropped altitude and ended my flight. No damage, which is great, but I just want to point out, really, you just do really want to keep in mind it is a little bit tricky to fly. Overall, it's just going to be, if you buy it, I wouldn't call it a good first aircraft, but if you've been in the hobby for a little while and you want a little bit of a challenge, if you want like a little bit of a learning curve, if that's stuff that you enjoy, you know, because all planes have a personality, and this plane's personality is a little bit different. But yeah, this is just my impression so far. I generally like to just kind of keep updating, you know, my impressions and keep flying, and as I learn more about it, I'll keep making videos. But it's a neat airplane. It's you know, it's cheap. You know, it's a nice RTF package. It has all you need to get going. But like I said, flight times probably looking at about a 5 minute flight time. So bear that in mind, you know, before you buy, or if you're planning on maybe trying a different battery, you know, you can probably get a better battery for this and fly longer. But that's just what I found out up to this point. That's all I got for today. Thanks for watching.